Hello, football fans, and welcome back to Road to the Big Game, the series where we cover the lead up to a given Super Bowl. And just to remind you once again, the game, Super Bowl IX, the date, January 12th, 1975. The location, New Orleans, Louisiana, at Tulane Stadium, in front of nearly 81,000 fans. The teams, one with one of the most dangerous passing games in the league, and a defense that makes even the best fear for their safety. And a team that many thought would already be a Super Bowl champion at this point, the Minnesota Vikings. Their opposition? One of the few defensive cores that rivals theirs, and some believe that have already exceeded them. An offense has a pretty aggressive running game, but a passing attack that still leaves a lot to be desired. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Neither team has won a Super Bowl in the short history of the big game. In part 1, we covered the Vikings. They've made it twice, came up on the losing end both times in Super Bowl 4 and the previous year in Super Bowl 8. They do have an NFL championship, however, to show it for the former. They've only existed since 1961 and have risen through the ranks thanks to Jim Finks' bold approach as general manager in building a winner and the attitude of Coach Bud Grant. In part 2, we cover the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, despite existing for just over 40 years at this point, have mainly been a joke and a laughingstock for the majority of their history. But when Chuck Noll was hired as head coach, things changed. Along with the Rooney family of ownership and director of player personnel Dick Haley, they all grouped together a team finally on the brink of success, and that finally became contenders in 1972. Winning, of course, their first playoff game in the process ever, due to the remarkable play that is the Immaculate Reception. Coming off the 1973 season, the Steelers had a small setback. They were defeated soundly in the playoffs by the Raiders in the divisional round. The Vikings are coming off a rough Super Bowl loss to the Dolphins, as I alluded to. Both teams' major reputations are their defense and their superstar defensive line cores. First in Minnesota, you had the Purple People Eaters. Tackles Gary Larson and Alan Page, defensive ends veteran Jim Marshall and Carl Eller. Page and Eller have become megastars on this core. Page was the first defensive player to win MVP in 1971. He was also Defensive Player of the Year that same season. First team All-Pro 3 times, including the prior season in 1973. Second team All-Pro twice, has been a Pro Bowler for 6 straight seasons. Eller is a 5-time first team All-Pro, 2-time second team All-Pro, and a 5-time Pro Bowler. Jim Marshall, who has been with the Vikings since the beginning of their franchise, has been a 3-time second team All-Pro and a 2-time Pro Bowler, while Larson is a 2-time Pro Bowl selection himself. The Vikings core is more veteran than the savvy Steelers. However, in the Steel Curtain, they've only just started coming together. It began with Mean Joe Green, who has already become an icon in the Steel City in 5 seasons. He has been a Pro Bowler every year, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, once a second-team All-Pro, and the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year in 1972. L.C. Greenwood's game is evolving and is coming off his first Pro Bowl selection. Dwight White is coming off 2 straight Pro Bowl selections, and Ernie Holmes is starting to really come into his own game. The linebacking core has the likes, on Minnesota that is, of Wally Hilgenberg, Roy Winston, and Jeff Simon. A solid bunch, Simon coming off a Pro Bowl season. But the Steelers core consists of 25-year-old Jack Ham, coming off a second-team All-Pro season, veteran Andy Russell, who was also a bright spot for many years during those dark times, and now for the better part of a decade has become a tremendous player with 5 Pro Bowls, coming off his 4th straight. The other is Henry Davis, who was a Pro Bowler in 72 but retired in the offseason. They'll probably need a replacement going into the 1974 season. The Steelers still seem to have the better backers in this regard. However, the secondary, the Vikings are led by underrated Bobby Bryant and the great Paul Krause, 3-time second-team All-Pro, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowl selection, as well as youngsters Nate Wright and Jeff Wright. The Steelers overall have a younger core, but have really grown dramatically in the last couple of seasons. Thanks to defensive coordinator Bud Carson, Mike Wagner has broken out as a star. Undrafted gritty Glenn Edwards proves to be a huge steal. Mel Blount hasn't even scratched the surface on the great things he's about to do, while JT Thomas is coming off a rookie season. On special teams, both seem to check all the boxes for kickers, punters, and returners. But then as we move to the offense, the Vikings, however, do have the best offensive line out of the two. Led by seasoned veteran Mick Tingelhoff, 6-time Pro Bowler, and 5-time first-team All-Pro. The amazing Ron Yary at offensive tackle, coming off 3 straight first-team Pro selections and Pro Bowls. Ed White lends substance, but six-time Pro Bowler Grady Alderman is on his final legs. He will play a lesser role in the upcoming season. The offensive line is something the Steelers are still trying to build. Veteran center Ray Mansfield has been the key, however, mainly. It was a second-team All-Pro in '72. They lost two-time Pro Bowl guard Bruce Van Dyke to the Packers, so that leaves a gap. Sam Davis, John Kolb, Gordon Gravel, and Jim Clark can hopefully come through for this team. On the receiving corps, Ron Shanklin proves to be a top target for the Steelers, and Frank Lewis still has potential. But the Vikings may have the edge in that regard, as John Gilliam has played magnificently since arriving in Minnesota. And 1972, they're hoping Jim Lash can really break out, as he's shown a little bit of promise. As for the running game, the Vikings will rely on Super Dave Osborne, who has dealt with injuries, however, in the prior seasons, but Chuck Foreman has become a huge breakout star in the prior 2 seasons. The Steelers have the new league phenom, however, in the backfield of Franco Harris, who had that storied rookie season in 1972, as the league's top offensive rookie to boot and the first Steeler to reach 1,000 yards rushing in their history. He dealt with injuries for a few games, but still played well in 1973. Preston Pearson and John Fuqua have produced excellent numbers in the past, and fan favorite war hero Rocky Blyer could see some action. Either way, the Steelers have the edge in that regard. But of course we go to quarterback, and it's no contest. It's all with the Vikings here. Fran Tarkenton is already one of the all-time greats, with 13 seasons under his belt, and now the second stint in the Vikings. But in his career, count it up, 6-time Pro Bowler, has played in the Super Bowl, now he can say, and he's just an efficient passer. The Steelers are directionless in that regard. Terry Bradshaw, the first overall pick from Louisiana Tech, had a good sophomore year, but he's being deemed a bust, with trouble with his consistency. And to the shock of many, the Steelers are going with third-year QB Joe Gilliam to start the season. And now, lastly, we look at the coaches. Bud Grant of the Vikings, entering his 8th season, reserved, disciplinarian, minimalist. Chuck Noll of the Steelers, entering his 6th season, teacher, intellectual, system builder. Grant, stoic. Noll, cerebral. Grant, self-discipline over motivation. Noll, internal leadership. Grant, defense first, ball control. Noll, defense anchored by talent, evolved the offense. Grant, distant but respected. Noll, respected the intelligence of his players. Both men, however, brought hopeless teams up from the brink. Grant, playoffs 6 times, 2 Super Bowl appearances and an NFL championship. Noll got his team their first playoff win ever in their near 40 years of existence in 1972, and now led them to their only back-to-back postseason appearances in 1973. This is how things look now. Things could change even drastically by the big game. And things are already going to change big time as we head into the 1974 NFL Draft. The draft takes place on January 29th and the 30th of 1974 at the Americana Hotel in New York City. The Vikings have 2 first-round picks, 17th and 25th overall. The Steelers have one at 21st overall. This is going to be a ride in itself. At 17th, from UCLA, the Vikings took Fred McNeil to be a future part of their linebacking core. At 21st overall, the Steelers took wide receiver out of USC, Lynn Swann. At 25th overall, the Vikings took Swann's teammate from USC, offensive tackle Steve Riley. Clearly the motives were there for all their moves. The Vikings wanted more strength at linebacker and to keep their own line fresh, while the Steelers looked for more style and finesse at receiver and someone who could make difficult long catches. Riley would only play 2 games for the Vikings in the 74 season. Let's look at Fred McNeil. 3 seasons playing with the Bruins, McNeil, under the tutelage of Coach Pepper Rogers, was a no-nonsense hitter and provided outright grit and nasty aggression, perhaps exactly what the Vikings need more of on their linebacking core. He was a first-team All-Pac-8 selection in his senior year of 73. At 6'2", 230 pounds, he definitely has a type of style that Grant would really like to see come alive in the pros. And now we go to the Steelers. The man called Swanee, Lynn Swan. Star receiver of the Trojans. The Steelers are gaining someone with pure grace in his play, uncanny balance, and able to move fluidly. His catches may be graceful, but he had strong hands to bring in a given pass, and could make a huge acrobatic grab at any given moment. He had incredible vertical leap, and used his body to become an expert in ball security. For 3 years playing at USC, he helped lead them to a national championship in 1972. In 3 seasons, he totaled 1,407 yards receiving on 85 catches, with an amazing 16.6 yards a catch and 10 touchdowns. He's coming off his epic senior season, where he caught 37 passes for 667 yards, 18 yards a catch, wow, and 6 touchdowns. Plus, first team All-Pac-8 and consensus All-American. This year, however, the Steelers will look to use him a lot as a special teams returner, primarily. The Steelers, however, made a huge pick again in the second round. At 46 overall, they took linebacker out of Kent State, Jack Lambert. 6'4", 220 pounds. He has all the things that Noel looks for in a player. First, intelligence and instinct, as he was a commander on the field, keeping things in line and in order so his team can make the play. He was a tough, hard hitter, tenacious, ferocious, intense, lust for contact, as they would call it. He was also an expert zone pass cover player, which was an extra asset that was no doubt noticed by the Steelers staff. In his time with the Golden Flashes, he was named the conference's Defensive Player of the Year in 1972. This is an incredible pick. 5 picks later, 51st overall, still in the second round, the Vikings took another linebacker, Iowa State's Matt Blair. He was grossly overlooked despite many accomplishments, but some feared his knee might be an issue as he didn't miss the 1972 season. With the Cyclones, however, he was a first-team All-American in 73, second-team All-American in 71, second-team All-Big 8 in both 71 and 73 as well. A towering 6'5" and 232 pounds, he was insanely fast for his height and was excellent in turnover situations and very good at rushing punters and kickers. Very good pick for the Vikings. And in the 4th round, 82nd overall, the Steelers got another young receiver, Alabama A&M's John Stallworth. Like Swan, he's excellent in the clutch, can make those big play catches, but he's a little bit more technical with his play, shall we say. His route running and is a little bit more physical if he has to be. But he does have great speed and agility. This is a huge steal for the Steelers. But it kept rolling for Pittsburgh, as in the 5th round, 125th overall, they chose Mike Webster, center out of Wisconsin. 6'1", 255 pounds, a relentless, tough, and yes, smart lineman with great communication with quarterbacks, better than just about anyone on the circuit. He was quick off the snap and to block like a light switch. An explosive blocker, Webster plays with big heart along with his skill. In 3 years with the Badgers, he was a first-team All-Big 10 in 73 and second-team in 72. His leadership and passion are definitely keys to building a better O-line for the Steelers. And indeed, the Steelers made out like bandits in this draft. But even after the draft, they gave a chance to undrafted safety Donnie Shell out of South Carolina State, overlooked due to not being in a highlighted program, plus some felt he didn't have the right size. But he was a Swiss Army knife of a secondary, filling gaps, making tackles in space, covering a fast receiver, great quick hands, awesome tackling. He could do it all. He had 8 interceptions in his senior year, actually. Those are the only stats I could find. But the Vikings were now dealt a blow in the office. Jim Finks resigned in the spring of 74. The man who built them from a mere low expansion team into a contender has left the purple and gold for good. Apparently it was due to issues with team stock held by long-departed Norm Van Brocklin, as well as issues with Pete Rozelle, the league commissioner, all leading up to him leaving. He wasn't done in the NFL, as he'd head to Chicago, but it was a sad departure for this club as he's going to be with the rival Bears. Either way, he's the reason why this team was able to accumulate the talent they had. Well, now we're ready. We fast forward to September, training camp is done, both teams are ready for action. The Vikings, a veteran-savvy group with some young emerging talents. The Steelers, a young team that's still very much a question mark. Experts and pundits believe the Vikings could possibly indeed win their first Super Bowl. while they believe the Steelers may possibly make the playoffs. Either way, we are ready for Week 1. Indeed, Week 1 takes place on September 15, 1974, and we start with the Minnesota Vikings visiting their hated rivals, the Green Bay Packers. Since the Vikings' inception, the Packers fans will just resent this team for even existing. In the mid to late 1960s, as the Packers' success came and went, the Vikings began to rise and the rivalry intensified. The Packers, since their Super Bowl II win, have only made the playoffs once. The fans at Lambeau Field, however, still want to see their pack destroy the purple and gold. Fran Tarkenton gets the start for the Vikings. The Vikings started a little slow, trailing 10-3, but they tied the score before halftime, running away with the game, catching a 32-17 win over their rivals at their stadium. Not a big surprise here, this was more or less an expected result. However, bad news as defensive back Bobby Bryant is hurt and will miss the rest of the season, despite that the defense was still the big story. Nate Wright was a nightmare for Packers quarterback Jerry Tigg, picking off 2 passes and totaling in returns for 62 yards on those interceptions, setting up points for the Vikings on both, while Jeff Wright also had a key pick. But the Wrights were the only ones getting it done as the Purple People Eaters were in full force. Eller, Page, Larson, and Marshall were in Tegg's face all day and brought him down a few times, as the Packers overall were held to under 200 yards of total offense and just 12 first downs. On offense, Chuck Foreman led the way. So when the Vikings were down 10-3, he scored 3 touchdowns in a row from 5, 18, and 1 yard out, respectively. And had a banner game, totaling 22 carries for 67 yards, while Oscar Reed also ran for over 60 yards. Wasn't a huge night for Tarkenton necessarily, but he still commanded things well. 14-23 for 126 yards, didn't throw a touchdown, and had 1 pick. But now let's see how the Steelers do to open the season. And they will open at home at Three Rivers Stadium against the lowly Baltimore Colts, who were once NFL royalty. Not a lot long before this, they just seemed to plummet dramatically in the last couple of years, and they weren't looking much better going into this season. They did bolster such talents, such as running back Lydell Mitchell and linebacker Mad Dog Curtis, but this team was still going nowhere fast. And indeed, the Steelers, Joe Gilliam, will get his second career start. And yeah, this result was in very little doubt as well. The Steelers decimated the Colts 30-0. Nice little palate cleanser to begin the season. The fans at Three Rivers Stadium. And like the Vikings, the defense was incredible. The steel curtain couldn't be stopped, as quarterback Burt Jones took a massive beating throughout the game. So much so that Mean Joe's numbers were almost embedded on his jersey. The Colts offense was held to under 200 yards and 11 first downs. What a game for this core. Also, Jack Lambert made a very impressive debut. The defensive backs were on their game as well. Mel Blunt snagged an interception, which led to a score, and Glenn Edwards snagged a key pick as well. And the Sumo were a nightmare for the Colts receivers all day. But the offense did their job, as Joe Gilliam actually played a very good game. 17 for 31, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And amazing on the long ball. He was on point here and communicated well with his offense, and showed he had something. And I mentioned how he was good in the long ball. Well, that's because Lynn Swann in his first career game caught 2 long passes for 40 and 54 yards, the latter of which was an epic touchdown, totaling 94 yards in his welcome debut to the NFL, showing that his magnificent skills with both catches on the day. Stallworth was no slouch, however, catching 2 catches for 25 yards. Well, we're going to stick with the Steelers for the next couple games. In week 2, it was a tie, bit of a rough tie. The upstart Denver Broncos, whose running game did a number on the Steelers' defense. The Broncos did strike first with a long touchdown pass, but Gilliam responded with one to Steve Davis from 61 yards out to tie it. The Steelers trailed 21-7. They roared back and it was tied 28-28 after 3 quarters. Steelers then took a 35-28 lead and looked poised for another win, but a late touchdown by the Broncos secured the tie 35-35. Gilliam went to the air a lot in this game, going 31 for 50. He had an incredible 348 yards and 1 touchdown, but he did throw 2 costly picks. Either way, he seems to be doing okay in this role. Franco Harris had a huge game, 154 yards of scrimmage, 70 rushing yards on 20 carries, was big on receiving plays with 9 catches for 84 yards. In week 3, it got bad. Very bad. A 17-0 shutout loss, who completely embarrassed Pittsburgh yet again, like they did in last year's playoffs. This time the Steelers had to take the beating at home. Gilliam was bad. Really bad. 8 for 31. 23 incompletions, 2 of them interceptions. Franco Harris did nothing in this game, but he also got hurt. Steelers sit at a mediocre 1-1-1 to start the season. Things didn't look all that great. Now let's check on the Vikings. Well, it's a very tight 7-6 win over the Detroit Lions in Week 2 for them. Chuck Foreman's 11-yard touchdown in the second quarter put up the Vikings to stay, and a thrilling finish allowed them to hold on to the victory. And indeed, Foreman was the big star on offense again this week, running for 83 yards on 13 carries, and of course a lone touchdown. John Gilliam had a big game with 4 catches for 87 yards, kept the ball moving and making spectacular plays. But of course, the story again was the defense, as the purple people eaters, and the color purple was burnt to the retinas of quarterback Bill Munson. The Lions were held to just 168 yards of offense and a mere 9 first downs. The Vikings finally had their home opener on Week 3 at Metropolitan Stadium in front of a rabid group of fans facing their hated rivals, the Bears, who haven't made the playoffs since 1963. And it's another defensive battle, as the Vikes have now won 3 in a row to start the year, edging out Chicago 11-7. This Vikings defense really has a lot going for them. Wally Hilgenberg hit a tackle in the end zone for a safety, and it was on Chicago's punter who bowled the ball and opened the scoring. Paul Krause snagged his first interception of the year, while Nate Wright got another pick. All around, the Vikings defense has looked unstoppable so far. Foreman continues his great start to the season, 117 yards from scrimmage, 74 yards rushing, 43 yards receiving. He's been an offensive driving force for the defensive-minded Vikings. On Week 4, the Vikings took a trip to Dallas to face off against the Cowboys. And what an exciting outing it was. The Cowboys struck first with a touchdown, but a big 46-yard field goal from Fred Cox, and then targeted with a nice pass to Foreman, which ended up being a 66-yard touchdown, gave the Vikings the lead. And they led 13-7 at the half, thanks to another 30-yard boot from Cox, another touchdown from Foreman, this time a 13-yard pass from Tarkenton made it 20-7, but the Cowboys made a comeback and took a 21-20 lead. But Cox's late 27-yard field goal made him the hero in this one, 23-21 victory. And that defense was still on fire as the Vikings snagged 4 passes away from the legendary QB Roger Staubach. Nate Wright continues to have a great year with his 2 interceptions in this one, coming at key moments in this game. Tarkenton had his best game so far this season, going 17 for 27 for 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. And oh, look, there's Foreman again. Another huge game, while 72 yards on the ground is solid. It was his 5 catches for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that huge 66-yarder that was a true highlight, totaling 203 yards from scrimmage. And hey, kicker Fred Cox deserves his due in this one, hitting 3 field goals on all 3 attempts, including the late game winner. Adding to successful touchdown converts, he had 11 points on the day. The Vikings returned home on October 13, 1974 for Week 5, and they embarrassed the Houston Oilers. It began with Tarkenton's 80-yard touchdown pass to Gilliam in the first quarter, and they never looked back. Tarkenton was excellent here, 18 for 24 for 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and he wasn't sacked once. Still a huge commanding force out there. He played a no-nonsense game. Backup quarterback Bob Berry also got some playing time and actually threw some touchdown passes. John Gilliam had 2 catches for 102 yards, of course one being the big 80-yarder, showing how dangerous he can be on the long ball and made both catches count in a big way. I should also mention Chuck Foreman had 124 yards from scrimmage in this one. But the defense, poor damn Pastorini was under fire all day from the purple people eaters, as though it was the Oilers' running game. Houston was held to just 185 total yards and 11 first downs. On top of that, the Vikings secondary has picked up Pastorini 4 times, 1 each for Nate Wright, Jackie Wallace, linebacker Jeff Simon, and backup linebacker Amos Martin. Everyone was just on point in this game. The Vikings are looking unstoppable at 5-0 and delivering on both sides of the ball. But now we go back to Pittsburgh. The Steelers, after 3 weeks of play, were 1-1-1. In Week 4, 1 week before the Vikings got to them, it was the Steelers who downed the Oilers this time, but not as dominantly, still edging them out 13-7. But they too had their defense destroy hapless Houston at the end of the day, as that awesome steel curtain was in full force, as the Oilers were held down to 10 first downs. With Franco Harris out of action, Preston Pearson was the big player on offense. 15 carries, 117 yards, including a huge 53-yard touchdown run and a 9-yard touchdown run. QB Gilliam played better than he did the week prior. Then it was a wild win at Arrowhead Stadium over the Kansas City Chiefs. The Steelers are playing pretty good, but Gilliam threw several incompletions, but leave it to the defense to make things happen even further. Gritty Glenn Edwards returned an interception, 49 yards for a touchdown to make it 21-10, and the Chiefs were forever playing catch-up after that in what would be a 34-24 win for the Steelers. Count it up! 7 interceptions in total. 2 for Edwards, including that 49-yard return. And the jacks of all linebackers, rookie Jack Lambert gets his first career interception, then his second career interception. And the other Jack Ham, robbed the ball twice, showing his skills as well. Ham, Lambert, along with Russell, were key in holding the Chiefs' running game at beta 58 yards. Also, JT Thomas got the other interception, playing great to boot. The Steelers' backfield were doing all they can to step up in Harris's absence, as Rocky Blair, who after his rookie season left to serve in the U.S. Army, did combat in Vietnam, was awarded a Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, and the Combat Infantryman Badge. This made him a folk hero in Pittsburgh, and on this day he had 86 yards of scrimmage, including a 2-yard touchdown run. Then the Steelers made it 3 in a row with a thrilling 2016 win over their division rivals, Cleveland. Franco Harris returned to action and played very well and scored a touchdown on his return. The Steelers had to hold off a Cleveland comeback, but either way, they are looking excellent. And hey, Harrison missed a step, 14 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown, as the Steel City faithful was definitely glad to have him back, and he looked glad to be there as well. But fans kind of just turned on Gilliam in this game. He threw 18 passes, completing just 5. He played pretty good this season, but apparently he and Chuck Noll can't get on the same page, and the coach didn't appreciate the quarterback strategy. But the defense, the defense. The Steel Curtain sacked Cleveland QB Mike Phipps 6 times. This core continues to evolve and show that game in and game out they can just get better and better. Glenn Edwards also returned an interception for 59 yards. Then on Monday Night Football, the Steelers face the Atlanta Falcons as Terry Bradshaw gets his first start of the season. And the Steelers had a 14-0 lead after one quarter, but the Falcons tied it before halftime. They got it together, however, and get their 4th win in a row, 24-17 at home on primetime. The Steel Curtain got to Falcons quarterback Bob Lee 7 times, so much so he was begging me, Joe, to just give him a bottle of Coke, give him the jersey off his back, and show some mercy. Oh, this whole core is great, but Joe is playing on another level, and they held the Falcons to just 167 yards. The pass coverage remains incredible as Jack Ham snags yet another interception as the sophomore JT Thomas, while Mel Blount played a great game. Terry Bradshaw got his first start of the year, as I mentioned, and didn't look what I would call good. 9 for 21, 122 yards, and threw 2 picks. I'm not saying Gilliam outside of the first couple weeks was that great, but what was the point? Well, I may actually have the answer for that question. See, Bradshaw knows how to better utilize Franco Harris, and boy, was that ever evident in this game. Number 32 is a beast, 28 carries, 141 yards, a touchdown. He owned this game every which way on the offensive side. Blyer also played excellently with 78 yards. Also, Lynn Swan had a big game on special teams. He returned 7 punts for 102 yards, averaging 14.6 yards a return, underpinning the Steelers in excellent field position. The Steelers then get their 5th win in a row, shutting out their state rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, 27-0. This defense is truly spectacular. They hold the Eagles to just 143 yards total, sacking QBs Gabriel and Reeves 2 times each, shutting down the Eagles' ground gain of 66 yards and just 10 first downs overall for the Eagles offense. Man, this whole quarter is just on fire. They are scorching an inferno. Steel Curtain, those dangerous linebackers, and that underrated secondary as Mel Blount snagged a pick and returned it all the way. 52 yards for a touchdown, which was the final insult in this game. Edwards snagged one as well, continuing his great year, returned it 26 yards. These two are just ever so dangerous against the pass. Franco Harris again led the way on offense with 20 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. So now the Steelers are on fire after a so-so start, 6-1-1. And now we go back to the Vikings, who started the season with a huge 5 wins. The Vikings' winning ways, however, came to an abrupt end in a 2016 upset loss to the Detroit Lions. This is the first time this year the Vikings defense didn't really play a big shutdown game, as the Lions' pass attack really stymied them. However, Dave Osborne played his best game of the year, 14 carries, 96 yards, and looked like his old super self. Jim Lash also played his best game this year with 4 catches for 89 yards, averaging around 22.25 yards a catch. Tarkenton himself also played pretty well here. Then it was another loss, this time to a hot New England Patriots team led by the dangerous running games of Sam Cunningham and Mac Heron. They were able to hold on to Heron, but not on Cunningham. The Vikes did have a 14-10 lead late in the fourth, but a touchdown in the dying moments of the game from the Pats sealed their fate. They lost 17-14. Huge game, however, for receiver Gilliam, making 5 catches for 117 yards, averaging 23.4 yards a catch as he continues to be a huge asset. Tarkenton, the man throwing the passes to him, however, threw 20 incompletions and just above half his passes and 3 very costly picks, his worst outing so far this year. The Vikings defense overall played better than they did the prior week, but this time it was Jeff Wright with the interception. Amos Martin garnered another as well. But there's always something Bud Grant teaches his boys, and that's not to panic. As that's the case as they rebounded pretty quick in the win column with a 17-0 win over the Bears at Soldier Field. Gilliam and Voigt with the touchdowns. Jeff Wright had an interception for the second straight game, so did rookie linebacker Matt Blair, as the Vikings pass coverage was indeed stellar on this day. But it was the whole Vikings defense in this one that did the damage, sacking Bears quarterbacks twice, holding them to 10 first downs, 158 total yards, and holding the running game to just 58 yards. Hilgenberg and Simon were excellent as well, along with the Purple People Eaters, and Matt Blair is fitting right into the lineup. It was the running game this time that the Vikings relied on, and it was epic, as both Osborne and Foreman combined for 178 yards. Osborne really coming alive again lately, had 98 yards on 24 carries, while Chuck Foreman had 80 yards on 21 carries, exposing the weak Bears run defense. And then it was back-to-back victories now, this one on prime time from Monday Night Football, as the Vikings faced their toughest yet this season, beating a very good Cardinals team who were 7-1 going into this game and did so on the road in St. Louis. The Cards were led by the legendary Roger Worley in the secondary and the awesome running game of Terry Metcalf, who had been shut down hard on this day. The Vikings did win it 20-24, holding off a Cardinals comeback attempt late in the fourth. The Vikings did have some trouble, however, against the pass attack. The trio of Blair, Simon, and Hilgenberg, however, were key in stopping Metcalf, and also held another talented back, Jim Otis, to just barely above 3.5 yards a carry. This linebacking core is truly beginning to gel in a huge way for the Vikings. Dave Osborne played incredible with 169 yards from scrimmage. He has been on a tear lately. Carried the ball 23 times for 98 yards and got a touchdown to boot. He also caught the ball 7 times for 71 yards and was key on short passes. Foreman added 68 yards. Well, now the Vikings, after those 2 tough losses, get big wins and are 7-2-0 after Week 9. Now we go back to the Steelers on that very same Week 9, who went on a 5-game winning streak and sit at 6-1-1. But on Week 9, their winning ways come to an end as they drop a tough 17-10 loss to their division rivals and biggest threat at that point of the year, the Cincinnati Bengals. Quarterback Ken Anderson played nearly perfect against Cincy, and it cost the Steelers, for Cincy. The Steelers did cause 3 fumbles and recovered all of them, but couldn't capitalize. Bradshaw threw 22 incompletions on 35 passes. Harris is one of the few highlights here, 17 carries for 75 yards, seeing his excellent season. The Steelers' offense, well, decent. Some of these better outings for their QB. Bradshaw is going to be benched during the upcoming game, and third stringer Terry Henry will take the snaps. Bad news, he's awful. Good news, Steelers beat Cleveland 26-16, as at the very least, one of the 2 passes that Henry completed on the 15 he threw was a 26-yard touchdown pass to Ron Shanklin to make it 7-3 Steelers. As Steelers defense and Franco Harris owned the day as the kickers went back and forth as Garella booted 2 to give his boys a 13-6 lead, but a costly pick thrown by Henry tied the game at 13. The Browns led 16-13 after 3 quarters. After Roy's third field goal, the game tied it. J.T. Thomas, who's having a career night already with 2 interceptions, recovered a fumble, returning it 14 yards for a touchdown. Garella's fourth field goal, however, sealed the deal, and the Steelers win. What an epic day for JT Thomas, the hero of the day, as he not only had 2 key interceptions, but that clutch fumble return, which put the Steelers ahead to stay, shows that in his sophomore season, in his first as a starter, that he belongs in this defensive core. Mean Joe Green continues having an epic season as well, as not only was he in the face of Browns quarterback Brian Sipe almost every play it's seen, even bringing him down hard to the turf like he only can, but he also snagged a key interception in the game, returned it 26 yards. It's the first pick of his career. It would actually be his only one. Well, the regular season anyway. But number 32 was the man again on offense's biggest game of the year. 23 carries, 156 yards, just could not be stopped. At the very least, gaining a few yards on every play it's seen, and made the Browns defense pay a heavy price as he averaged 6.8 yards a carry. He has been carrying this offense in a big way, speaking of which, this season. Despite the bad passing game, Ron Shanklin deserves his flowers in this, as all three completions by Steelers QBs, Henry and Gilliam, were to him. And at least they totaled 81 yards and a touchdown. So, he was at least there for the key moments when the passes made it. And a big day for Roy Garella, a kicker, booted big 4 field goals on 5 attempts, booted 2 converts for a 14-point game. And the Steelers stay on winning track with a dominant 28-7 win over the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football at the very same stadium that will be hosting the Super Bowl we're getting to. Bradshaw was back taking the snaps again, and while his passing game wasn't all that great, his running game was another story. He actually made 2 big key runs in the game, including an 18-yard touchdown run and a 34-yard bolt down the field, which was also key in a drive. 9 carries, 99 yards total. And he also threw for 2 touchdown passes. But again, it's Franco Harris who shines brightest on the offense. 19 carries, 114 yards on the day. The Saints more or less need a bulldozer to stop him. Lynn Swann also stole the show as he returned a punt 64 yards all the way for a touchdown, showing his finesse and speed, putting it on display with a highlight reel-worthy score. But of course, the defense. Oh, the defense. The Steel Curtain is doing their thing. Mean Joe leading the pack. 6 sacks, 3 on Bobby Scott, 2 on Archie Manning, even 1 on wideout Joel Parker on an attempted trick play. Also holding the Saints to just 178 total yards. The linebacking core in the secondary continued to roll as well as rookie Jack Ham and veteran Andy Russell each snag an interception while JT Thomas stays hot and grabs another steal as well. This win moves the Steelers to 8-2-1, 3 games remaining, staying ahead of the Bengals at 7-4-0. Now let's go back to the Vikings. Well, they suffer a tough loss at home to their hated rivals, the Packers, 19-7. So the Vikings' ground game was completely shut down. The Packers' running game actually ran all over the Vikings' defense. Tarkenton played okay, but his big gun was Jim Lash, who caught 6 catches for 136 yards, averaging 26.7 yards a catch. Then it was a heartbreaking loss to a very good Rams club, who were led by the legendary Marlon Olsen and Jack Youngblood, who put a lot of pressure on Tarkenton. The Vikings had a 17-6 lead going into the 4th quarter, but they just completely fell apart as the Rams came back and won 20-17. This time it was the passing game that got the best of the Vikings. Chuck Foreman, like he has so often, was the big star in this one. He had 137 yards from scrimmage, 49 yards rushing on 12 carries, and a 1-yard touchdown, 88 yards receiving on 9 catches, including a 12-yard touchdown toss from Tarkenton, who himself played well enough. The Vikings are 7-4-0 after another pair of back-to-back losses. The Packers and Lions to 6-5, still in the hunt. Now, the Steelers and Vikings each have 3 games left. How will their season end? Well, let's go to Pittsburgh. Well, the Steelers' quarterback problem still looks unsolved as they take a stunning loss to Houston at home, 13-10, losing to a late field goal. Bradshaw completed just 6 of 20 passes, threw a pick, and Hannerty came in and threw 5 passes, none of which were complete, and 2 of them were receptions. Harris was also shut down on this day with 29 yards rushing. The Steelers had just 84 total yards and 6 first downs. And the Steelers' defense did play well, of course, holding Houston to just 11 first downs themselves and just 258 yards of total yardage and garnering 3 sacks on Pastorini, the poor guy facing the Purple People Eaters and Steel Curtain both in the same year. But just imagine the offense showed up. This should have been a win. Steelers slipped to 8-3-1. But due to other division rivals not staying consistent, they're actually not in immediate danger right now. And indeed, they clinched the division the following week and are headed to the playoffs for the third straight season as they beat the once hot but severely cooled down New England Patriots on the road 21-17. Bradshaw didn't go to the air too much, but it was actually one of his better outings when he did. But after a rough game the week prior, Franco Harris is back to full force with 29 carries for 136 yards and a touchdown. Man, what a year he is having. And the defense? Yes, the defense. Holding the Pats down for 184 total yards, 12 first downs. Their running game held down to 77. Lambert was a beast here. So was Greenwood, who actually sacked Plunkett for his safety and put the game out of reach. The Pats attempted a comeback. And for the final game of the season at home, they rubbed salt in the wounds of their division rivals, the Bengals, who won't be in the playoffs this year, downing them 27-3. Bradshaw and Gilliam split playing time, and they actually managed to play pretty well. Bradshaw with 2 touchdown passes, including a 5-yard touchdown pass to John Stallworth that opened the scoring, his first career touchdown. Overall, he had an epic game. 6 catches, 105 yards, averaging 17.5 yards a catch, giving the Steel City a sneak preview of what's ahead in the next several years. Franco Harris ran for 79 yards and 17 carries, but more importantly, that gives him 1,006 yards on the season, the second millennium mark of his 3-season career. What a banner season for number 32. Lynn Swann continues his excellent rookie campaign with 3 punt returns, totaling 112 yards, averaging 37.3 yards a return, as he, much like Stallworth, giving the Steelers just a small preview of what's ahead. And another new sensation made his presence felt in this one, as Donnie Shell, making his first career start, even though he's seen a lot of action this year, garnered his first career interception, kicking off a great career ahead. The Steelers finished the season with a very impressive 10-3-1 record. Now let's see how the Vikings finish things off in their final 3 games. Well, immediately they get back on winning track in Week 12. The dominant 29-9 win over the New Orleans Saints, looking sharp and ready to take their division. Tarkenton plays his best game of the season, going 20 for 29, throwing for a big 317 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looking truly in command out there with a near-flawless performance. No surprise that his 2 biggest targets of the day have been his biggest of the season. John Gilliam caught touchdown passes of 13 and 22 yards, and overall caught 5 passes for 109 yards. And then Jim Lash, 3 catches for 112 yards, including a 57-yarder that set up a score. Huge game for him as well. And the Purple People Eaters were causing Archie Manning so much chaos. 3 sacks total, only allowing 110 passing yards to boot. Oy. Then it was an easy win over the Falcons, 23-10, sending Tarkenton out as the Vikings own the NFC Central yet again. For the 6th time, 7 seasons, and Bob Berry was the one taking the snaps in this one. The Purple People Eaters ruled the roost again, as Falcons QB Kim McQuilkin will have nightmares triggered by the color purple for the rest of his life. In fact, the whole game, producing 4 sacks, causing their offense to reach under 200 yards. Dave Osborne was the big star on offense in this one, 96 yards on 24 carries, and scoring 2 touchdowns from 10 and 5 yards out. He's having a tremendous season. And now, let's see how the Vikings will wrap things up. And that would be with a dominant 35-15 win over the Chiefs. A smart game from Coach Bud Graham, making sure his stars stay healthy, as both Foreman and Osborne sat out, while Lash and Gilliam only saw limited field time. Tarkenton and Berry split quarterback duties. Berry was actually very impressive when taking the snaps in this one, going 11 for 12, throwing for 111 yards and 2 touchdown passes, 1 each to backup backfielders Oscar Reed and Ed Marinaro. Tarkenton also threw 2 touchdown passes, and both were to backup receiver Sam McCullum, who only caught 1 pass all year prior to this game, and today had 6 catches for 118 yards, including touchdowns for 34, 10 yards out. Big day for this youngster to wrap up the season. And of course, big game for the Vikings defense to close it all out. Purple People Eaters gobbled up quarterbacks Len Dawson and Dean Carlson 3 and 2 times respectively for sacks, totaling 5. They managed to hold in to 79 yards on the ground, while Hilgenberg and Simon each had interceptions. In the end, this is the biggest reason why the Vikings finished 10-4-0 on the season. Before we hit playoff time, let's see how the regular season stats compare with the final numbers. The Vikings clearly had the better passing game than the Steelers by a country mile. Fran Tarkenton had another excellent year with 2,598 yards passing, 3rd best in the league.
17 touchdown passes were 6. He threw 12 picks. He's just one shy of 200 completions with 199. Still good enough for a third best in the NFL. His 56.7 completion percentage was tied for 9th, while his 82.1 passer rating was 7th. Neither Steelers QB proved himself this season, really. While Gilliam did play a couple excellent games, just overall he didn't play the way and gel the way that Noel thought he would with the offense. Terry Bradshaw seemed to do what Noel likes. As starter, Gilliam was 4-1-1. Bradshaw was 5-2-0. Hanratty in his limited action was 1-0, but played awful. Either way, combine all three Steelers QBs had just under 2,000 yards passing, threw 12 touchdowns, 21 picks, had a completion percentage of 43. I.e., combined they didn't equal one of Tarkenton. Well, let's move to the backfield. Well, we know this was basically the Steelers' entire offense all season. Franco Harris was brilliant. 1,006 yards rushing was 5th best in the NFL in 1974. His 4.8 yards per carry was 4th best. He had 200 yards receiving and had a total of 1,206 yards from scrimmage, which was 8th best in the NFL. Also, Rocky Bleier had over 300 yards and proved to be reliable. The Vikings are also a threat in the run, as we know, as Chuck Foreman had an epic year and is a major threat on the run or down the field on a pass. 777 rushing yards, 586 receiving yards, totaling 1,363 yards from scrimmage, 4th best in the NFL. Dave Osborne was also stellar with 514 yards rushing. I'd say Harris gives the Steelers the edge in this department, but the Vikings are still very dangerous here too. Obviously, with a better quarterback game, the Vikings' receiving core benefited a lot more. Jim Lash led the Vikings with 631 yards and averaged 19.7 yards a catch. He was tied for 4th best in the league and had 32 receptions. On just 26 catches, John Gilliam had 578 yards receiving and 22.2 yards a catch. However, due to his slightly low amount of catches per game, he does not qualify as a league leader, but still very impressive. And these two, along with Foreman, were the top targets all year long, reaching 500-plus yards. Only two Steelers receivers even reached 300 yards in receiving this year. Frank Lewis at 365 on 30 receptions with 12.2 yards a catch, while Ronnie Shanklin caught 19 passes for 324 yards, 17.1 yards a catch. However, rookies Stallworth and Swan showed some promise. Both teams' offensive lines, however, were just outright outstanding this season. The Vikings only gave up 19 unofficial sacks, 5th best in the league, and led up by a great season from Ron Yari. Veteran Mick Tinglehoff is still quite dominant, while Ed White, Charlie Goodrum, and mid-year acquisition Andy Moorer were top-notch. The Vikings' running game also benefited greatly from these blockers. The Steelers' offensive line was highly improved from previous seasons, just giving up just 18 sacks. It's the 3rd least in the league, and helping Franco Harris have his great seasons. Though none of them were recognized as a Pro Bowler or an All-Team Pro, this is likely due to the weak passing game. Ray Mansfield, however, led the way, as some guards were switched out game in and game out. Sam Davis, Jerry Mullen, Jim Clack, and sometimes due to injuries, but all performed well. Gordon Gravel and John Kolb also did well on their end, and rookie Mike Webster saw some playing time, and hey, he shows some potential. Now to special teams. For place kickers, Fred Cox booted 68 points and a field goal percentage of 60, while Roy Gorella, the Steelers, was 2nd in the league in scoring with 93 points, just one back of best in the league, had a 69% field goal percentage, which was good enough for 6th in the league. Mike Eyeshade had a decent year at punter for the Vikings, 36.1 yards per punt and 2,636 yards, while Bobby Walden booted 39 yards a punt for the Steelers and finished 10th with 3,040 yards. The Vikings weren't overly strong on punt returns this year, but on kick returns they had two excellent bolsters. Brent McClanahan had 549 yards total and 23 yards a return, while Sam McCullum had 300 yards in returns and averaged an excellent 25 yards a return. However, Lynn Swan of the Steelers did incredible on punt returns, 577 yards, which was the best in the NFL, averaged 14.1 yards a return, and also got a touchdown, using his speed and finesse to get the Steelers in great field position. What a rookie year. And now to the defense. Oh, the defense. First, the secondary. The Vikings had to really come together in a big way with the injury to Bobby Bryant in Week 1. And they did just that. Nate Wright, 6 interceptions, led the way on the defensive backcourt. Jeff Wright added 4. Veteran Paul Cross still mastered a great cover game while adding a couple, while young Jackie Wallace made the most of his playing time and snagged a pick. Overall, the Vikings had 22 interceptions. That was the 8th most in the NFL, despite giving up the 8th most passing yards. But they also gave up the least passing touchdowns in the entire NFL with a great defending strategy in the red zone. The Steelers' secondary was also in tremendous form. Nasty Glenn Edwards led the way, along with young breakout star J.T. Thomas with 5 picks each, while Mel Blunt's cover game was uncanny and he also snagged 2 picks, as did Mike Wagner, who played very well. The Steelers' 25 interceptions was tied for third best in the league. Despite giving up the 10th most passing touchdowns, they gave up the least passing yards. But when it comes to interceptions and coverage for both teams, the backs can't take all the credit because the linebacking core did more of their fair share in that department as well. The Vikings linebacking core was grossly underrated in the grand scheme of things. Jeff Simon was tremendous. He had 2 interceptions, while Hilgenberg had 1. And rookie Matt Blair, who was a surprise breakout star for the Purple and Gold. And another big surprise is Amos Martin, who wasn't a starter most of the year, but he managed to pick off 3 passes. And he was an excellent extra pass cover. But it was their help against the rush that really stood out. The Vikings gave up the 5th least rushing yards in the league and 9th least rushing touchdowns. But the Steelers, the Jackson or Russell. While Jack Ham tied the team lead with 5 picks, while rookie Jack Lambert was the team's breakout defensive star, had 2, and veteran Andy Russell had 1, but their amazing tackling abilities and savvy out there is what completed that core. They were only just 3 yards behind the Vikings in terms of rushing yards given up and came in with 6th least. However, their abilities in the red zone speaks volumes, giving up the 2nd least rushing touchdowns all year. And now, the whole defensive attack begins with their infamous frontline attacks, and of course we start with the Purple People Eaters. Alan Page was once again truly in a league of his own this year with one of the best seasons of his career. And indeed, he is the leading man of that infamous attack and added 11 unofficial sacks, which is tied for 7. Carl Eller again continues to be one of the best in his position. He had 10 sacks this year. Veteran Jim Marshall is a force out there adding pressure when needed, while Gary Larson provides that X factor out there. And of course, the Steel Curtain. Mean Joe Green continues to change the game out there with what he can do. Game in and game out. It's about making things happen, getting results, not just about statistics. And he did that game in and game out. And in his 6th season proves that he just gets better and better with each passing year as he gets older. He had 4 fumble recoveries, and he added 9 unofficial sacks to further prove that he is without a shadow of a doubt the best at what he does. His 4 fumble recoveries were tied for 4th best. L.C. Greenwood had an amazing year as well, the best of his career, as his quick off-the-jump skills struck fear into quarterbacks everywhere, or anyone who had the ball from the backfield. He recorded 11 unofficial sacks, tied for 7th. Ernie Holmes had a career season, able to show more of what he can do, and recorded 11.5 sacks, which was 6th best in the league. Dwight White also had a banner season and totaled 8.5 sacks. The Steelers' 52 unofficial sacks led the entire league. And with that in mind, it's playoff time. We start with the Vikings on December 21st, 1974 in the NFC Divisional Round. The Vikings take on the St. Louis Cardinals, who won the NFC East, their first division title since 1948, and their first playoff appearance since 1963. They have a highly potent offense, and they have one of the best offensive lines in the league, led by Dan Deerdorf. And can they contain the Purple People Eaters? Well, that would be a no. You probably knew the answer already. Despite the Cards scoring the first touchdown of the game, the Vikings went on a tear and dominated the rest of the way, coming out with a 30-14 win at home and clinching their 2nd straight NFC Championship berth. The attack on the Cardinals' Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Hart was the strategy needed to win, as the Purple People Eaters were in his face all day long. And the Vikings secondary proved to be very valuable with their great coverage, as Hart made 40 pass attempts and threw 22 incompletions, including an interception to Jeff Wright. Chuck Foreman was the man on offense. What a game. 23 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. That pretty much put the game out of reach as he continues his epic season. Tarkenton had a few struggles, but he got it together by the end. And Osborne had a great day with over 60 yards rushing. Now we go to the AFC. And next, we had the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Buffalo Bills the day after the NFC Divisional game at Three Rivers Stadium. The Bills were the wildcard club, led of course by megastar running back O.J. Simpson. The Bills are making their first playoff appearance since 1966 when they were still in the AFL, so this is their first NFL playoff appearance. The Bills did have a 7-3 lead after a quarter, but 4 straight touchdowns gave the Steelers a 29-7 lead, and they never looked back. And they hang on to win 32-14 and advance the AFC Championship for the 2nd time in 3 seasons. The defense held Simpson to just 49 yards on 15 carries in this one. The Steel Curtain, that's right, and the Jackson Russell linebacking core were amazing in this game. So the Bills just had no answer for anything thrown at them. Terry Bradshaw probably had his best outing of the year, going 12 for 19 for 203 yards and a touchdown toss, and utilizing 7 different receivers on the pass, playing big when it counts the most. And yes, number 32, Franco Harris. 3 touchdowns consecutively, as a matter of fact. Has 74 rushing yards total as he was unstoppable in the red zone. And now the Steelers get their big chance to win the conference for the first time. And now It's the NFC Championship at Metropolitan Stadium in Minnesota as the Vikings host the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday, December 29th. The Rams had an excellent year with a top-ranked defense in the league. A tight overall defensive game, but the Vikings always played ahead, it seemed, and held off an attempted comeback with a 14-10 win, and they're going back to the Super Bowl for the second straight year and third time in their history. The running game kept things moving for the Vikings as Dave Osborne had 76 yards on 20 carries, scored a touchdown, while Chuck Foreman had 80 yards on 22 carries. While Tarkenton's passing game was decent, it was this awesome duo who kept things going. The Vikings defense was working smoothly as the Purple People Eaters and company were all over quarterback James Harris, while Wally Hilgenberg and backup defensive back Randy Podol were at the right place at the right time, highlighting their play and stopped the Rams comeback, and each got an interception. As the NFC Championship was wrapping up, oh boy, the AFC Championship was just getting underway. It's the team that crushed the Steelers' playoff hopes from last season and shut them out this season 17-0, handing them just one of their 3 losses, the Oakland Raiders, who bolster the league's top offense and 9th-ranked defense and are heavy Super Bowl favorites. Well, would this offense be too much for the Steelers' defense to handle? Yeah, come on. Yeah, what's the name of this YouTube series? You know the answer by now. I'm just stating this for the record. And while the Raiders make good plays, they make costly mistakes, and the Steelers, of course, are going to capitalize, getting revenge from last season and winning 24-13 in Oakland. And for the first time ever, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. They've barely ever competed for a championship, let alone been in one. Wow. Raiders star quarterback Ken Stabler was picked out 3 times, twice by Jack Ham, who played a superb game and was just everywhere on the field he needed to be at a given time. JT Thomas had the other interception, and of course the Steel Curtain did their job on the day, giving their team the edge. Much like the Vikings, it was the Steelers' running game is what got them through this one. Franco Harris, of course, a huge gain, 29 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's just having a great playoff, including the 21-yard scamper that put the game out of reach in the fourth quarter. While Rocky Blyer played like a champion out there, 18 carries and 98 yards. And, well, now that both teams have clinched their spot in the big game, let's take a look at the award winners. In the Pro Bowl, the Vikings had a total of 7 selections. Fran Tarkenton garnered the 7th of his career and 3rd as a member of the Vikings. Running back Chuck Foreman got his 2nd straight Pro Bowl selection. Why not John Gilliam gets his 3rd straight as well, as he has had one every year since joining the Vikings. Offensive tackle Ron Yary garners his 4th straight selection to boot. On the defensive side of things, Alan Page gets his 7th straight with another banner year, while partner in crime Carl Eller gets the 6th of his career and 2nd straight. The great Paul Crust, safety, gets the 7th of his career and 4th straight. And now to the Steelers, who garnered 6 selections. It'd just be one on offense, and I think you all know what that would be without even looking at this graphic. It's going to be Franco Harris, his 3rd selection in all 3 of his seasons he has played. Roy Gorilla, the Steelers kicker, actually earned his 2nd selection. He got one in 72, and his fan club known as Gorillas, very happy to hear this, I'm sure. Now to the defense, and yes indeed, Mean Joe Green is of course an easy unanimous selection, his 6th every year he has played in the league thus far. His partner in crime, L.C. Greenwood, gets his 2nd straight, having a banner season of his own. Linebacker Jack Ham garnered his 2nd straight selection. Andy Russell gets his 6th. The veteran also has his 5th straight. And now to the All-Pro teams. First team All-Pros starting. The Steelers garnered 3 to the Vikings 2. Mean Joe Green for the 3rd straight year and 3rd time overall is the first team All-Pro. He was a 2nd team selection in 71. L.C. Greenwood becomes an All-Pro for the first time in his career, period. While Jack Ham is a first team All-Pro for the first time, he's a 2nd team selection last season. For the Vikings, Ron Yary gets his 4th straight and overall first team selection, got a 2nd team berth in 1970. Alan Page gets his 4th and has had 2 2nd team selections in the past as well. Each team had 1 2nd team selection. Steelers kicker Roy Gorilla gets his 2nd selection. Again, he had one in 72. And Chuck Foreman, star running back of the Vikings, gets his very first. But there were more honors given out. Yes, Jack Lambert, the draft steal for the Steelers, is the NFL's Defensive Rookie of the Year, as he is quickly becoming a hero to the Steelers faithful with his overall grit and toughness. Fitting in on this team better than a stretchy glove. What an arrival. But wait, we're not done. yes, to no surprise, Mean Joe Green, for the second time in his career, second time in 3 seasons, is the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. Remember, he won it in 1972. His skill, his immense presence, his leadership by example, the way he works to win was on full display this year as he assists his teammates all around as well. But there's still one more hill for both these teams to climb. The big game. And we have arrived. January 12th, 1975, Super Bowl IX. In front of a sellout crowd near 81,000 people at Tulane Stadium in New Orleans, Louisiana. A mild winter day, one of the few colder Super Bowls played in the game's history, mainly because it was supposed to be held in the Superdome, but the stadium had not been completed for construction yet. However, coldness is nothing new to either team, especially the Vikings. A wide TV audience will be watching on NBC, as the game has now reached a whole new level of appeal over the years. The national anthem was sung by the New Orleans chapter of the Society for the Preservation of Barbershop Quartet Singing of America. Yeah. Anyway, it has all come down to this. The Pittsburgh Steelers up until a couple seasons ago were basically a punchline and a given joke about football over their long history since the 1930s. But they could very well be on the verge of cementing themselves in the annals of football history. You have the Minnesota Vikings, a team more often than not always in contendership in recent years, but still have yet to win the big one. Many feel they should already have a title already. But offenses, both of them, with a huge running game, both excellent offensive lines, but could the quarterback factor be what wins out in the end? Tarkenton is clearly way ahead of Terry Bradshaw, but the experts feel that it's the defense that's going to make all the difference on either side, regardless of who wins. It's easy to see why, as both teams have relied on it primarily all season. The odds makers, in a bit of a surprise, felt that the Steelers would be the favorites, but only by 3 points. Meaning they're not heavy favorites, and it would be no surprise if the Vikings still won. Some feel the Vikings linebacking core might not be able to handle the Steelers' ground game, while the Steelers' linebacking core is stronger and could give the Vikings' run game a lot to handle. So, here we are, Super Bowl IX. The Steelers win the coin toss, and the Vikings will kick off the big game. Here we go. Fred Cox kicks off for the Vikings, and the ball boots 43 yards to the 22, and Preston Pearson makes a good 15-yard return. The Steelers will start at their 37. The Steelers' offense led by their offensive line. Mansfield starts at center. At guard, you have Clark and Mullins getting this start, while Kolb and Gravel are at the tackle positions. Shanklin and Lewis are the starting wideouts, while Brown starts at tight end. In the backfield, it's Blyer and Franco Harris. And at quarterback, Terry Bradshaw. The Vikings defense is ready for this one. The Purple People Eaters are looking hungry. Page, Eller, and Marshall. However, they opt to give the start to Doug Sutherland, who's had a pretty good year himself, but Larson will still be in action in this game, as it will be his last one. Winston, Simon, and Hilgenberg get the start at linebacker. Matt Blair, however, will be a part of this game. While the Wrights, Nate and Jeff, no relation, and Wallace and Krause are at defensive back. So here we go. 1st and 10 from the 37. First play from scrimmage. Hand off to Blyer. He gains 3. 2nd and 7. Harris is tackled, but for a loss by Winston for a yard. It's 3rd and 8. Then Bradshaw is sacked by backup Bob Lertima, and it's 3 and out. Walden out to punt. He boots a good 52 yards. The Vikings come out led by Trenchman Tinglehoff at center, guards Moorer and White, and tackles Goodrum and the great Ron Yari. Their top guns are receiver Jim Lash and John Gilliam are out there with tight end Stu Voigt. The deadly duo of Foreman and Osborne in the backfield, and of course, Tarkenton starts at quarterback at his 2nd straight Super Bowl appearance. For the Steelers defense, the steel curtain is all here and accounted for. Mean Joe, Greenwood, White, and Holmes. The Jackson and Russell, Ham, Lambert, and Andy. The defensive backcourt, Thomas, Blunt, Wagner, and Edwards. Tarkenton begins from his own 18, and he hits Gilliam for a nice 16-yard gain up to the 34. However, he threw an incompletion of Voigt. Osborne goes for a run, but White stops him after a yard. On 39, Tarkenton is incomplete to Gilliam, who is well covered. The Vikings punt. Ice Shade boots it 40 yards, and the Steelers will start the next drive from their 42. Good field position. A false start penalty moves the Steelers back from the 37 at 1st and 15. Bradshaw hands off to Blyer, who finds a hole and gains 18 yards all the way to the Vikings' 45. The Steelers get their first down. Harris then fights to gain for yards, but then on 2nd and 6, Harris went for another run, didn't get far. The Steelers are penalized for clipping. All the way back to their 44, 2nd and 21, Bradshaw completes it to Frank Lewis for 12 yards, bringing up 3rd and 9, but then Alan Page eats up Bradshaw for an 8-yard loss and a sack. The Steelers again forced to punt. Walden boots at 39 yards. The Vikings will start at their 14. 1st and 10, handout to Foreman. He's denied by Jack Ham and loses 2 yards. Tarkenton completes a short pass to Foreman for 4 yards, bringing up 3rd and 8. Tarkenton, however, throws a bad pass to no intended target, and it's 3 and out. The Vikings now punt. Eyeshade boots at 36 yards, and the Steelers start in good field position again, this time at the Vikings 44. After a bad incompletion to Lewis, Bradshaw hands off to Harris, who gains 3 yards, bringing up 3rd and 7. But then Terry finds Larry Brown open, and he drives hard ahead for a big 15-yard gain and a fresh set of downs. Blyer for 4, Harris for 2, bringing up 3rd and 4 from the 20, and the Steelers are the first team to reach the red zone in this game. But then Bradshaw throws an incompletion, and Guerrero comes out to boot a 37-yard field goal attempt, and it's up, and it's no good. Oh, boy. The wind is a bit of a factor, however, in this game. The Vikings start the next drive at the 20. Foreman gains 1 as Andy Russell stops him hard. Void is covered. Gilliam can't shake off Blunt, and it's 3 and out. Vikings are forced to punt. Not a great punt either, 31 yards. They're going to start at their 48. On the first play of the drive, Blyer gains 4, and then offside penalty moves the Steelers up to the Vikings 43 for 2nd and 1. Harris gets the handoff and takes off a bit more. 14-yard gain all the way to the Minnesota 29. With a fresh set of downs, Bradshaw decides to take it in himself, gaining 11 yards to the Minnesota 18. However, Harris is stopped for no gain thanks to a great play from Sutherland. Harris then gains 2, bringing up 3rd and 8. Bradshaw's incomplete to Lewis. The Steelers now go for a 35-yard field goal attempt, but the snap is bobbled by punter and holder Bobby Walden, who recovers the ball, but that means it's turned over on downs. 2 bad field goal attempts for the Steelers. It could be 6-0. Vikings keep catching a break, but can they finally capitalize? Tarkenton takes over on his own 23. The last play of the first quarter, Osborne gets the handoff and gains nothing thanks to White. It remains scoreless. The Steelers have played better offensively, but squandered 2 big scoring chances. The Vikings just couldn't capitalize, and they'll get another chance, however, as we start. The second quarter, we begin with the Vikings 2nd and 10 from their 23. Tarkenton takes the snap. He completes the open Chuck Foreman, who races for 12 yards and down to the 35. But then incomplete to Lash, who is well covered. Osborne carries again. Ernie Holmes drops the curtain on him. And another incompletion, this one to Gilliam. The Vikings have yet to hit Steelers territory. Eyeshade gets a better punt off. The Steelers will start their own 15. Harris takes a handoff, gains 5 yards. Bradshaw throws the completion to Stallworth, who is well covered. Bradshaw seems to complete a big pass to Swan, but it's offensive pass interference. Play is nullified. On 3rd and 15 from the 10, Blyer gains 8 yards, but fumbles. Randy Hodel recovers for the Vikings. They can't screw this one up. Osborne gains 2 as Ham is in his face. Incomplete to Foreman twice. Now it's a 39-yard field goal attempt for the Vikings and Cox, and it's up, and it's no good. Wow, what is going on here? Still no score. A very strange game. Take over at the 22. Blyer is then stuffed by Simon for a 1-yard loss, and Harris gains 3. Then on 3rd and 8, Bradshaw makes a beautiful pass to John Stallworth, who makes it and gains that extra 22 yards. Fresh set of downs at their 46. Blyer gains 6, Harris gains 2, but then Blyer gains nothing thanks to a great stop by the up front core. It's 4th and 2, the Steelers must punt. Walden boots at 39 yards, bringing the Vikings at their 7-yard line. Foreman gains 3 yards, getting it to the 10, but then a bad snap. Tarkenton fumbles. It ends up in the end zone, and he does pounce on it, but White is credited with a safety touch, and the Steelers are the ones to get on the board first in what has been just, again, quite a bizarre game, leading 2-0 with 7:34 remaining in the half. The Steelers get the ball back again on the kickoff, of course. Bradshaw takes over his own 35. He completes a nice little 5-yard pass to Blyer. Harris gains 2, but at 3rd and 3, while he completes a pass to Stallworth, he's stepped back for a loss thanks to some great coverage from Jackie Wallace. Steelers again forced to punt. Walden gets a 50-yard boot away. The Vikings get the ball to the 20 to start the next drive. A bad pass interference penalty moves the Vikings all the way up to the 35. But Osborne can't get anything going. He's tackled for a loss by White. Tarkenton finds Foreman open for a 10-yard completion, bringing up 3rd and 1. Foreman gains the 2 yards for the first down at their own 46. But then after a bad incompletion and Foreman gaining 2, we're at 3rd and 8 And then Fran finds Foreman again, who catches and runs for 17 yards of the first down. And the Steelers 35. Wow. Foreman then gains 4. 2 straight 3-yard short passes to Voigt and Osborne, respectively. Give them a fresh set of downs at the Steelers 25. Tarkenton then takes the snap. He looks for his man. He goes to the end zone. And it's intercepted by Mel Blount. Wow. He returns it to the 10. A huge clutch play. Bradshaw is taken down, however, on the next play by Jim Marshall. But then Franco Harris gains 25 yards for a massive first down. Blyer loses 1, but Bradshaw runs out the quarter on a 17-yard run of his own. And at halftime, the Pittsburgh Steelers lead 2-0. This is a very odd game, as I've said. But both teams have squandered major opportunities to put points on the board, but the experts who said it'd be a defensive game weren't wrong. Almost even at first downs, the Steelers had 6, the Vikings had 5 at the half. The Steelers have moved the ball much better offensively with 208 yards total. The Vikings just a mere 66. Each team has turned the ball over once, however the Vikings were unable to capitalize on Podol's fumble recovery, while Blunt's interception from the Steelers may have indeed stopped the Vikings from taking control of the game. The Steelers did turn the ball over on downs, however, 3 times, all on botched field goals, 2 misses, and a fumble, which they recovered. But again, thanks to the Steelers' defense, the Vikings just can't get on the board. The Steelers have made the Vikings red zone twice, despite not scoring any points as a result. The Vikings have yet to hit the Steelers' red zone at all, getting only to the 25. Guerrella's not playing well, missing 2 field goals, while Cox of the Vikings has missed 1. The punters have seen a fair bit of action so far, with 3 punts from the Steelers' Walden and Eyeshade booting 4 for the Vikings. But here's what the story don't tell you. Jack Lambert is hurt. Despite wanting to play and eager to get back in the game, Chuck Noll didn't want to take the chance. But this is where the Vikings need to capitalize. Get good blocking on the steel curtain and expose their weaker side of the linebackers. So after the halftime show, which was a tribute to Duke Ellington, led by his son Mercer Ellington and the Grambling State University Band, we are ready for the third quarter. Guerrilla kicks it off to Bill Brown, who is hit and drops the ball. Marv Kellum recovers the fumble. Steelers ball on the Vikings 30, a big turn of events. Blyer is stopped for no gain thanks to Eller, but on 2nd and 10, Franco Harris breaks through with a huge 24-yard gain all the way down to the Vikings 6-yard line. But then Harris loses 3 thanks to Hilgenberg. Then on 2nd and goal, Bradshaw gambles on Franco again, but this time he bursts through the defense. Some great blocking and a touchdown for the Steelers. Guerrilla kicks the point after. Just like that, it's now 9-0. Great lead for the Steelers. Guerrilla kicks off, and the Vikings need to get in this thing. They start at their own 28. Osborne for 2, stopped by Holmes. Foreman for 1, stopped by Mean Joe. Tarkenton completes a pass to Foreman, but he stops short of a first down. They are forced to punt. This is dangerous as the Steelers can really build on this lead as they start on their own 27. Harris then gains 9, then 4, bringing up a fresh set of downs. Bradshaw then hits Stallworth for an 8-yard gain. Harris gets 4 on a first down. Bradshaw gains 5, then 1, but then on 3rd and 4, Blyer is stopped by Eller for no gain, and the Steelers are forced to punt. It's a touchback, and the Vikings will start on their 20. But it does not look good. Foreman loses a yard thanks to Russell, and after a legal forward pass, they lose a down, bringing up 3rd and 11. But Foreman makes one of his best rushes of the game, gaining 12 yards, enough for the first down. Then Fran goes to Osborne, who gains 1, then loses 5 as Greenwood pulverizes him. And it's 3rd and 14 at their 27, but then Tarkenton takes the snap. He sees his tight end moving down the field, and Stu Voigt catches a huge pass and gains 28 yards, making it to the Steelers' 45. Foreman, however, loses a couple yards thanks to substitute linebacker Ed Bradley, as now Russell is out of the game too. Then on the next snap, Tarkenton goes for a quick pass, but is blocked by Dwight White and intercepted by Mean Joe Green. He returns it 10 yards, and the Steelers get the ball back on their 40. Remember how I said Green only had 1 career interception, and that was this season? Well, this is his only postseason interception of his career. Anyway, Harris gains 6, but then is stopped for no gain by Page. And then Bradshaw is intercepted by Jeff Simon. Well, no, wait a second. The Vikings were offside in the play, and it's still Steelers' ball. Harris gains 1, then 3. That ends the third quarter. The Steelers leading 9-0. And indeed, Pittsburgh just have to keep control in this low-scoring affair as they carry that 9-point lead and a shutout and are hopeful 50 minutes away from their first Super Bowl. But the Vikings need to capitalize on the injuries to Russell and Lambert. They need to expose the substitutes. But the steel curtain will likely step up even more so. They need great blocking here. Anyway, here we go. Fourth quarter. Steelers have the ball. Bradshaw, however, on 3rd and 6 throws an incompletion, and it's a punt. Walden boots a bad one, 21 yards. The Vikings will start at their 24. Tarkenton completes a nice 5-yard gain to Foreman. But then a handoff to Foreman goes bad as Blunt comes in from the corner and stops it for no gain. Then another incompletion. The Vikings are 3-0, and the Steelers defense doing their job. The Steelers start the next drive at their 36, but Harris fumbles. It's recovered by Krause. And then the Vikings catch a huge break. A 42-yard pass interference penalty finally moves them into the Steelers' red zone. First and goal at the 5. Hand off to Foreman. He loses 2 yards thanks to the curtain and fumbles. What is going on here? Mean Joe recovers it. This was their big chance to get in the game, and they blew it. The steel curtain capitalizing on their mistakes. They're getting even more aggressive. Harris then gains 8, but then he and Blyer each go for no gain. It's 3 and out. Walden to punt, but then it's blocked by Matt Blair, and into the end zone it goes. Terry Brown passes on it. The Vikings get the touchdown and finally get the break they so desperately need. But then the extra point is no good. Either way, the Vikings now cut the Steelers' lead to a field goal, 9-6. With 10:28 remaining, lots of time left, and the game is a whole new one. It's far from over. But the Steelers are definitely not panicking. They start fairly well at their 34. Harris Saver gets no gain on a carry, but then gains 8 on the next play. 3rd and 2, Bradshaw takes the snap and makes his biggest play of the game. He passes 30 yards to tight end Larry Brown. They're all the way to the Vikings 28. However, they are moved back to the 33 due to a penalty. And after failing to gain a yard, Blyer breaks through the Vikings defense, a 17-yard gain down to the 16. Harris makes gains of 4 and 1, bringing up 3rd and 5. Short pass to Blyer. He gets 6. First down at the Minnesota 5. Harris gains 2, loses 1. It's 3rd and goal at the Vikings 4. Bradshaw takes the snap. He sees Brown open. He has him. Touchdown, Steelers. The point after is good. It's 16-6. This drive nearly took 7 minutes off the clock. And with just 3:31 to play, the Steelers have taken a huge 16-6, 10-point lead. Kudos to Bradshaw, Harris, and Brown for them making that big drive happen, scoring and killing time. The Vikings now need a miracle to pull this off. They get a good kick return, however, from McClanahan, started at 39. Tarkenton needs to move the ball, and super quick. He takes a snap, pass to Gilliam, intercepted by Wagner, who returns at 26 yards. And that should do it. Now the Steelers just need to run out the clock, starting at the Vikings 41. Harris for 2, then 1, then 15, and a fresh set of downs. It's happening. Blyer for 6 into the Vikings red zone. However, Lynn Swan's first Super Bowl reception isn't a good one. He loses 7 yards. But Blyer gains it back as the Steelers fans in attendance are going insane. So are the Louisiana faithful, who see Terry Bradshaw, of course, as one of their own, being a Louisiana boy. The players on the sidelines eager to celebrate, while the dejected look on Fran Tarkenton's face, as well as Coach Bud Grant, speaks volumes. Blyer then loses 6 on 4th down. It's turnover on downs. But it doesn't matter. The Steelers fans back home are sounding the steam whistles and the factories in joy as they listen on the radio. The fans watching on their homes on TV are ready to hit the streets for a celebration as the loserdom that has defined this team is about to be erased forever. Tarkenton incomplete. Reed loses 2. The game is over. The Pittsburgh Steelers, after 42 seasons, win their first major championship and are indeed the 1974 Super Bowl champions. Indeed, the final is 16-6. Now everyone on this team who didn't know it before knows what it's like to be a winner, and a new dynasty is born. Sadly for the Vikings, who last season became the first team to lose 2 Super Bowls, are now the first team to lose 2 Super Bowls in a row. For the Steelers, a new legacy has begun, and Coach Chuck Noll worked tirelessly to make it happen. The Vikings had chances, but the Steelers' defense wouldn't let them get those opportunities. They only reached the Steelers' red zone once the entire game, and that was due to a penalty. What a tremendous game from the defenses on both sides. The Vikings made some great plays, but in the end, their offense was just slightly better enough, thanks to the likes of Franco Harris, to make this win happen. Terry Bradshaw didn't exactly put on a passing clinic, but proved to be the ultimate strategist on this day. His career this year was actually in question, but now he knew how to be a winner, and this game would forever change the trajectory of his career upward. He went 9 for 14 for 96 yards, and he made some big plays, including the passes to Brown. And his engineering of that drive late in the fourth quarter to give the Steelers a 10-point lead showed the mental prowess he had to win the big one. Not a good day, however, for Vikings quarterback Fran Tarkenton, as the Super Bowl just does not seem to be his game, as he's proven for his second year straight, and spoiler, will prove so again. The Pittsburgh defense was all over him. The steel curtain was in his face, and thanks to great coverage, he was 11 for 26 for 102 yards, intercepted 3 times. A day he'd like to forget, no doubt. Franco Harris, the Steelers' star running back, was moving the ball, making big plays, burning time off the clock. He even got himself a nice touchdown. As throughout these playoffs, he has been nothing short of brilliant. On this game, 34 carries, 158 yards, and of course a touchdown, and his desire to win on full display. He made things happen out there once again. And the Steelers, he was the top powerhouse on their offense. Gotta give credit to Rocky Blyer, however. He played a beauty too, with 17 carries for 65 yards, showing his heart and desire to be a winner as well on that football field, making many key runs. The Vikings run game, which was dominant all year, was completely shut down by the steel curtain, as they couldn't get enough blocking to expose the substitute linebackers. The curtain was extra sure they didn't get much going. Foreman had just 18 yards on 12 carries, but I do need to acknowledge he was the Vikings' top receiver. 5 catches for 50 yards, averaging 10 a catch. Osborne, however, had a terrible game. 8 carries, -1 yard. It's more a testament to the Steelers' defense on this day. Larry Brown, more known for his blocking at tight end, was huge on that final scoring drive, catching that huge long pass from Bradshaw and getting the touchdown to boot. He was the Steelers' top receiver on the day with 3 catches for 49 yards, had the biggest shining moment of his career. Lewis only had 1 catch, Shanklin had none, but Stallworth showed some of what he will have to offer in the coming years. The Vikings star wideouts had a rough day too, as they recovered thoroughly throughout the game. Gilliam had 1 catch for 16 yards, and that was early in the game. Lash caught nothing. Well, now we move to the defense. Oh, the defense. And the Steelers were on point every which way. Mean Joe Green was a dynamite force out there, always in Tarkenton's face, pressure on the running backs as well, and garnered a rare interception and recovered a key fumble. Once again showing the world just why he always had the heart of a champion, and now he can call himself one. Mel Blount's interception may have changed the whole trajectory of the game, as the Vikings are threatening to take control of the game, until Mel took matters into his own hands. Literally. He played a superb game and was the key in the Vikings receiving core not getting anything going. Mike Wagner was also tremendous out there, and he had a key interception, providing incredible coverage to boot. And now to credit the rest of the Steelers defense, who, in a word, were just amazing. The rest of the steel curtain front line, White, Holmes, and Greenwood, were all excellent out there. Ham, Lambert, and Russell were incredibly producing well out there, even if the latter two got hurt. Backups Taves and Bradley did their fair share, while JT Thomas and Glenn Edwards were a force to be reckoned with on receiving coverage, and again, key in taking away the Vikings' offensive game. In total, the Vikings had a mere total of just 9 first downs and produced a low 919 total yards. And this core has barely scratched the surface of what they're going to do down the road. And the Purple People Eaters. Well, the original lineup is now done as Larson retired. Doug Sutherland will take a spot. They did for quite a while keep their team in this game, but it just wasn't enough. Their linebacking core didn't have what it took to stop the Steelers on the run, and well, that was the X factor really at the end of the day. It had to be tough for Vikings head coach Bud Grant to watch his team lose a 3rd Super Bowl. Again, he was coaching in all of them. This wasn't exactly the end for the Vikings. They were still top-level contenders for the next 4 seasons, even made another Super Bowl appearance. But championship success as of 2024, and I highly doubt 2025 either, will come their way. But as for head coach Chuck Knoll and defensive coordinator Bud Carson, they have created something truly special here. Carson, I believe, does not get enough credit, but Knoll deserves what he gets as well. With star players still young and in their prime, the Steelers dynasty of the 1970s has only just begun, and little did anyone know just how much glory this team would have even after this win. Working together with the Rooney family, Dick Haley, and others, an unforgettable legacy lay ahead for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there's still one question that remains. Who won Super Bowl MVP? And you could give it to any member of that Steelers defense, really, especially Blunt or Mean Joe. But it goes to... Yes, indeed! Franco Harris is named Super Bowl MVP. He was the one who kept the ball moving, time moving off the clock, made some huge plays, got the game's first touchdown. And yeah, you can make an argument for Green or Blunt, but you can't dispute Franco was the man who kept his team ahead at crucial moments. Well deserved for number 32. When it comes to Hall of Famers on these teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers have 12. 10 of them players. Art Rooney Sr. was inducted as an executive all the way back in 1964, as despite the Steelers' lack of success back then, was credited with keeping the team alive and building popularity of football in the city. The first inductee as a player from this team was Mean Joe Green, first year of eligibility, getting it back in 1987, and he retired in 1981 as one of the all-time greats. The very next year, also at his first year of eligibility, linebacker Jack Ham got the call to the Hall in 1988. 1989, quarterback Terry Bradshaw and defensive back Mel Blount were inducted together, both in their first year of eligibility as well. Two more Steelers got the call to the Hall in 1990. Superstar linebacker Jack Lambert and all-time great running back Franco Harris, once again first ballot choices. Head coach Chuck Noll, who coached the Steelers all the way until 1991, was given his enshrinement to the Hall a couple years later in 1993. Star offensive lineman Mike Webster had to wait for his second year of eligibility, as a future star center who still wasn't a starter on this team would be inducted in 1997. Lynn Swann, who retired at the young age of 30 in 1982, had to wait till his 14th year of eligibility, getting in 2001. 1 year later, fellow receiver John Stallworth, who on his 10th try finally got in by 2002. And lastly, after 28 years of eligibility, defensive back Donnie Shell made it into the Hall in 2020. Crazy to think that Stallworth, Swan, Webster, Shell, and Lambert were all rookies during this Super Bowl year. And while Lambert had a great year, and Swan was really good too on special teams, and Stallworth showed promise, Webster and Shell weren't even starters yet to boot. And none of them had even scratched the surface of what was to come. And while Terry Bradshaw, he's actually pretty much considered a bust going into this season. Remarkable. The Vikings, however, have a very impressive 8 inductees from this 1974 team, 6 of them players. Fran Tarkenton was the first to get in, having to wait, however, till his third year of eligibility in 1986, which is weird considering he retired as the NFL's all-time passing leader. Alan Page also had to wait till his second year of eligibility, I also find to be a little ridiculous, but either way, he got in for the class of 88. Head coach Bud Grant, who coached the team full-time until 1983 and had a brief return in 85, got the call to the Hall in 94. He remained employed by the team as a consultant all the way until 2022 at 95 years old, just a few months prior to his passing. Jim Finks, the brilliant GM who built this team, got his just due in 1995, a year after he passed with a posthumous induction. Paul Krause had to wait 14 years for his overdue induction. He was one of the most underrated defensive backs of all time. Ron Yariel also had to wait just as long for his induction, finally getting it in 2001. Carl Eller waited a ridiculous 20 years, got honored by the Hall in 2004, and then after over 30 years of waiting, offensive lineman Mick Tinglehoff was finally honored in 2015. And now we look at the selections for the 1970 All-Decade team. The Steelers had 9 honorees, including quarterback Terry Bradshaw, who won more Super Bowls than any quarterback in history until Joe Montana tied the record, and years later, Tom Brady broke it. Franco Harris is next and had a tremendous career all around, continued to thrive for the Steelers club, and would have 5 more 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Lynn Swann became one of the most exciting receivers in the game, and he made the All-Decade team, while Mike Webster became a driving force which the Steelers' offensive line would be built on, and really became the best at his position and made the cut as well. And of course, you know the defense will have their fair share. Of course, Mean Joe is a no-brainer. L.C. Greenwood, who sometimes does not get the recognition he deserves for what a great player he was. And many have argued that the 6-time Pro Bowler should be enshrined to the Hall of Fame. I believe there's a big argument to be made there. But it never bothered Greenwood, as he thought that Joe Green was a representative for all of them being inducted. However, sadly, Greenwood passed away in 2013. After his big rookie year, Jack Lambert became an icon in Pittsburgh, and his Never Say Die hustle made him unstoppable. Jack Ham also garnered a selection to the All-Decade team through his amazing work ethic and prowess. And lastly, Chuck Noll was the coach's selection, as he held the record for many years, most Super Bowl wins by a coach, until it was passed by Bill Belichick of the Patriots. 3 Vikings made the All-Decade team, and of course to no surprise to the main forces behind the Purple People Eaters. Alan Page, his incredible skills, pushing through and adding pressure, and Eller's desire and passion for the game lit up fans across the Twin Cities with joy in Minnesota, while as Ron Yari also makes the cut as one of the best offensive linemen of his era. 4 of these Steelers even made the All-Decade 1980s team. Mike Webster again played throughout the rest of the decade. Jack Lambert was still a driving force at linebacker until his retirement in '84. Mel Blount became one of the best cover men in the history of professional football. And again, Chuck Noll, despite no Super Bowl wins in the decade, still had a great winning record of 79-60. In 1994, during the NFL's big 75th anniversary celebration, the Vikings were grossly overlooked. The Steelers, however, garnered 5 selections, 4 of which were defensive. Mean Joe Green, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Mel Blount, and the only offensive selection, Mike Webster. But when it came time for the NFL to celebrate its 100th anniversary in 2019, at last Alan Page finally got the recognition that he deserves and was selected to the 100th anniversary team. And for the Steelers, well, Green, Ham, Lambert, Blount, Webster, and Chuck Noll. Everything that led up to this season for both teams was an incredible journey, and the 1974 season itself saw some crazy rides. And it's been a great ride to take you on. But in the end, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers who became the NFL's new dynasty on this Super Bowl IX. And what a road it was to the big game. And that does it indeed for this series on Super Bowl IX. What other big games would you like to see the path to for the Super Bowl? Leave a suggestion in the comments. Please like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see you.